In the vast darkness between stars, where civilizations rise and fall like waves against cosmic shores, there exists one truth that every species learns too late. Never mistake human kindness for weakness, and never assume their debts go unforgotten. The Galactic Council thought they understood humanity when Earth's representatives first appeared in their marble halls, speaking softly of trade agreements and peaceful cooperation. They saw a young species, barely past their home system, offering gifts of art, music, and scientific knowledge with eager smiles. The elder races exchanged knowing glances, another naive civilization ready to be guided, controlled, and ultimately exploited. They were catastrophically wrong. For humans carry within them something the galaxy had never encountered before, a perfect memory for kindness received and a terrifying patience for justice delayed. Every favor given, every hand extended in friendship, every life saved in the darkness of space, all of it recorded not in databases or treaties, but in the collective soul of humanity itself. The galaxy was about to learn that debts of gratitude can be as binding as gravity and twice as dangerous to ignore. The observation deck of the Galactic Council station hummed with the quiet efficiency of 1,000 different technologies working in harmony. Ambassador Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the transparent aluminum viewing port, watching cargo ships drift between the massive spokes of the station like fish in an endless ocean. 3 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, and she still felt wonder at the sight of so many different species working together. Amazing, isn't it? The voice belonged to Kethar, the Zelenian trade coordinator whose crystalline features caught the light from the nearby star. His species had been among the first to welcome humanity into the galactic community, offering trade routes and technological exchanges that had accelerated human development by centuries. Elena smiled, her weathered face crinkling at the corners. As Earth's chief diplomatic representative, she had spent more time in space than on her home planet these past years. Every time I see it, Kethar, your people's generosity has meant everything to us. The alien's mandibles clicked in what Elena had learned was equivalent to a modest shrug. Your species brings much to the community. Your music alone has enriched our culture beyond measure. Still, Elena insisted, you took a chance on an unknown species. The Zelenians could have ignored us completely, let us struggle to figure out galactic politics on our own. Instead, you offered friendship and guidance. Humans don't forget gestures like that. Kethar's compound eyes shifted in a pattern Elena recognized as mild discomfort. In her experience, most galactic species seemed genuinely puzzled by humanity's tendency to dwell on past kindnesses. They viewed such things as simple transactions, help given for expected future benefit. But humans understood something deeper. Genuine kindness created bonds that transcended simple commerce. Ambassador Vasquez, Kethar said, his translator rendering his tone carefully neutral. Your presence is requested in Council Chamber 7. The session begins in 20 minutes. Elena nodded, straightening her formal diplomatic attire. Today's session would address trade disputes between the hegemony worlds and the Free Colonial Alliance. As the newest members of the galactic community, humans held no official position in the matter, but their fresh perspective had proven valuable in previous negotiations. The corridors of the council station stretched for kilometers, connecting dozens of different environmental zones designed to accommodate the galaxy's diverse inhabitants. Elena passed through sections filled with the methane-breathing Korthak, their bulky environmental suits, making them appear like walking boulders. She exchanged polite greetings with a group of aerial sky children, their delicate forms floating in low-gravity chambers filled with luminescent gases. Each species had welcomed humanity differently. The Sky Children had offered artistic collaboration, creating stunning zero-gravity symphonies that combined human musical theory with their own ethereal sound sculptures. The massive, silicon-based Stonekin had shared mining technologies and helped establish human colonies on previously uninhabitable worlds. Even the reclusive Deep Watch had opened their vast library networks, allowing human researchers access to millions of years of accumulated knowledge. Elena maintained careful mental notes of every kindness, every gesture of friendship. It wasn't official policy, just personal habit. Her grandmother had raised her with simple principles. Remember who helps you when you're down, and always pay your debts. She hadn't expected those lessons to apply to interstellar diplomacy, but they seemed more relevant than ever. Council Chamber 7 was a marvel of engineering, its walls and ceiling composed of programmable matter that could shift to accommodate any species' environmental needs. Today, the chamber mimicked a neutral space environment with soft lighting and standard atmospheric composition. Representatives from 43 different species occupied floating platforms arranged in a complex three-dimensional pattern that reflected their various political alliances. Elena took her position on the human platform, one of the smallest in the chamber. Beside her sat Dr. James Chun, Earth's foremost expert on galactic economics, and Captain Sarah Martinez, representing human military interests. Their delegation was tiny compared to the established powers, but their words carried weight earned through 3 years of honest dealing and innovative solutions. The session will now commence, announced Prelate Vorthak, the massive insectoid who served as current council moderator. His voice resonated through the chamber's acoustic systems, translating simultaneously into dozens of languages. Today we address the growing trade disputes between hegemony and alliance worlds, particularly regarding mineral rights in the contested neutral zones. Elena listened as various representatives presented their positions. The hegemony, led by the ancient Vordahani Empire, claimed historical precedent for mining rights dating back millennia. Their arguments centered on tradition, established law, and the divine mandate they believed justified their expansion across dozens of star systems. The Free Colonial Alliance countered with appeals to self-determination and resource sovereignty. Led by younger species who had thrown off hegemony rule, they argued that newly discovered worlds should belong to whoever could develop them most effectively, regardless of ancient claims. Both sides presented compelling arguments, but Elena noticed something troubling in the underlying dynamics. The established council members, the ones who had held power for thousands of years, seemed to favor hegemony positions almost automatically. The newer species, the ones who had joined the galactic community within the last few millennia, found their voices marginalized or ignored entirely. Dr. Chen leaned close to Elena's ear. Classic power structure protection, he whispered. The old powers support each other to maintain the status quo. Elena nodded, watching the debate with growing concern. She had seen similar patterns in Earth's history, established elites using their influence to suppress younger, more dynamic competitors. The galaxy, it seemed, was not immune to such tendencies. The hegemony's claims are clear, declared Ambassador Nethes of the Vordahani, her reptilian features displaying the aristocratic bearing of her ancient species. These systems have been marked for future development in our star charts for over 3,000 years. Colonial upstarts cannot simply ignore established precedent. The response came from Coordinator Thale of the Rigelian Collective, his mechanical body gleaming under the chamber's lights. The Rigelians had achieved technological transcendence centuries ago, replacing their biological forms with synthetic bodies that could operate in any environment. Your precedent consists of flying past these systems and claiming them for future use. The Alliance colonies have actually developed these worlds, built cities, established functioning societies. Irrelevant, Nethes replied coldly. Law is law. Order must be maintained, or the galaxy descends into chaos. Elena felt anger building in her chest. She had seen enough of galactic politics to recognize the pattern. The established powers used their ancient laws and traditions as weapons against newer species, maintaining their dominance through legal technicalities rather than merit. It was sophisticated oppression, dressed in a language of civilization and order. Captain Martinez tensed beside her. Elena could feel the military officer's frustration radiating like heat. Sarah had spent months helping Alliance worlds establish defensive systems against hegemony raids. She had seen the suffering caused by this supposedly civilized legal dispute. "Request permission to address the chamber," Elena said, her voice cutting through the formal arguments. Prelate Vorthak's compound eyes focused on her platform. "Permission granted, Ambassador Vasquez." The chamber recognizes the human delegation. Elena rose from her seat, feeling dozens of alien gazes focusing on her small figure. "Honored representatives, humanity has observed these proceedings with great interest. As the newest members of this community, we perhaps see things from a unique perspective." She paused, organizing her thoughts. Around the chamber, translators hummed quietly, converting her words into every conceivable form of communication. 3 years ago, my species made first contact with this galactic community. We were alone, frightened, completely ignorant of your laws, customs, and traditions. We could have been exploited, enslaved, or simply destroyed as a potential threat. Elena's gaze swept across the chamber, making eye contact with representatives she recognized. "Instead, we found kindness. The Zelenians offered trade partnerships and cultural exchange. The Sky Children shared their art and helped us understand beauty beyond our limited imagination. The Stonekin provided technology that transformed our mining operations and made barren worlds habitable. The Deep Watch opened their libraries and helped us place our own small history within the vast context of galactic civilization." She noticed several species representatives shifting uncomfortably. Many of them seemed puzzled by her focus on past kindnesses rather than current legal arguments. "The point, Ambassador," Prelate Vorthak interjected gently. "Being what exactly?" Elena smiled. "The point is that humans have a saying, actions speak louder than words. We judge civilizations not by their laws or traditions, but by how they treat those who cannot defend themselves." The chamber fell silent. Elena could feel the weight of alien attention pressing against her like a physical force. Right now, the Free Colonial Alliance represents dozens of younger species trying to build new lives on worlds the hegemony marked on ancient star charts, but never bothered to develop. These colonies have invested blood, sweat, and generations of effort into making barren worlds bloom with life. They have created art, culture, and technological innovations that benefit the entire galactic community. Elena's voice strengthened, carrying the conviction she had learned from a lifetime of diplomatic service. Yet this chamber seems prepared to strip away their achievements because ancient laws favor those who already hold power. This is not justice. This is not civilization. This is oppression dressed in legal language. Ambassador Nethes rose from her platform, her reptilian form towering over most other representatives. "Human delegate speaks from ignorance," she declared, her translator rendering her words with contemptuous precision. "These ancient laws maintain order across thousands of star systems. Without established precedent, the galaxy would tear itself apart in endless territorial wars." "Perhaps," Elena replied calmly, "but I would rather see honest conflict than dishonest peace. At least in war, everyone knows where they stand." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Several representatives seemed genuinely stunned by Elena's blunt statement. Galactic diplomacy typically favored elaborate courtesy and indirect communication. Human directness often caught alien diplomats off guard. Dr. Chun placed a restraining hand on Elena's arm, but she gently brushed it aside. "Ambassador Nethes," she continued, "your people have ruled their corner of the galaxy for millennia. You have accumulated vast wealth, advanced technology, and political influence that younger species can hardly imagine. Yet you feel threatened by colonial farmers and miners who have committed the crime of making dead worlds productive." Elena paused, letting her words sink in. "What does that say about the strength of your civilization? What does it say about the justice of your laws?" The Vordahani ambassador's neck frills flared in obvious anger. "Insolent child species. You have existed in this galaxy for barely 3 years. You understand nothing of the complexities that govern interstellar civilization. Maybe not, Elena agreed. But I understand that strength should protect weakness, not exploit it. I understand that justice means treating all beings with equal respect, regardless of how long their species has existed. And I understand that true civilization is measured by how it treats those who have nothing to offer in return. Elena turned to address the entire chamber. The Alliance colonies have offered to share their technological innovations with the entire galactic community. They have proposed fair compensation for any legitimate hegemony investments in these systems. They have bent over backward to find peaceful solutions that respect everyone's interests. Her voice hardened. In response, the hegemony has launched military raids against civilian targets, imposed trade embargoes that cause civilian suffering, and used their political influence to prevent fair hearings of colonial grievances. This is not the behavior of a mature civilization. This is the behavior of a bully who cannot accept that the galaxy no longer belongs exclusively to ancient powers. The chamber fell silent again. Elena could see shock, anger, and calculation in dozens of alien faces. She had violated numerous diplomatic protocols with her direct accusations and emotional language. But sometimes, she reflected, diplomatic protocols served to hide uncomfortable truths. Prelate Vorthak cleared his throat with a sound like grinding stone. Ambassador Vasquez, your passionate advocacy for the Alliance position is noted. However, this chamber operates according to established procedures. Emotional arguments cannot supersede legal precedent. Elena nodded respectfully. Of course, Prelate Vorthak, I would never suggest ignoring established law. I simply believe that law should serve justice, not replace it. She gathered her formal robes around her small frame. Humanity requests a recess to present additional evidence relevant to this case. Evidence that may shed new light on the legal and moral questions involved. The prelate's compound eyes glittered with curiosity. What manner of evidence, Ambassador? Elena smiled, the expression holding more steel than warmth. Historical evidence, Prelate. Records that demonstrate how established galactic powers have historically treated newer species attempting to establish themselves in previously unclaimed territories. Around the chamber, Elena could see understanding dawning in various alien expressions. She was threatening to drag ancient injustices into the light, to examine whether current hegemony actions represented isolated incidents or part of a pattern stretching back millennia. See, Prelate Vorthak said slowly. Very well. This chamber will recess for 6 standard hours to allow all parties to prepare additional evidence. Session will reconvene at the 14th hour. As representatives began filing out of the chamber, Elena felt Dr. Chen's hand on her shoulder. Elena, he said quietly, do you have any idea what you just started? Elena watched Ambassador Nethes gliding toward the exit, surrounded by a cluster of hegemony allies. The ancient reptilian's posture radiated fury and calculation in equal measure. Yes, Elena replied softly. I started something that should have begun long ago. Captain Martinez stepped closer, her military bearing evident even in civilian clothes. What exactly are you planning, Elena? Elena turned to face her colleagues, her expression calm, but determined. I'm planning to remind this galaxy that humans never forget a debt, good or bad. And it's time to start collecting on 3 years' worth of accumulated interest. Outside the chamber's transparent walls, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small dramas of biological intelligence. But something had shifted in the careful balance of galactic politics. For the first time in millennia, someone had challenged not just specific policies, but the fundamental assumptions underlying galactic civilization. Elena Vasquez walked toward her temporary quarters, already composing the message she would send to Earth. The response would take weeks to arrive, but when it did, the galaxy would learn something new about humanity. They were about to discover that human patience was not the same thing as human submission. and the bill for 3 years of kindness was about to come due. Elena's quarters aboard the council station were modest by galactic standards, but she had grown comfortable in the small space over the past 3 years. The walls displayed holographic images of Earth's landscapes, a reminder of home during long diplomatic missions. She sat at her desk, fingers dancing across a quantum keyboard as she composed the most important message of her career. The door chimed softly. "Enter," Elena called, not looking up from her work. Kethar glided into the room, his crystalline features reflecting the soft glow of Elena's workspace. The Zelenian's usual calm demeanor seemed strained, his compound eyes shifting in patterns Elena had learned to recognize as deep concern. "Ambassador Vasquez," he began formally, then seemed to catch himself. "Elena, we need to talk." Elena saved her work and turned to face her friend. In 3 years of diplomatic service, she had developed genuine relationships with representatives from dozens of species, but Kethar had been her first real alien friend. The Zelenian had guided her through the complexities of galactic etiquette, helped her avoid countless cultural missteps, and provided honest counsel when she needed it most. "You're worried about what happened in the chamber," Elena observed. Kethar's mandibles clicked nervously. Worried doesn't begin to describe it. "Elena, do you understand what you've done? You didn't just challenge hegemony policy. You attacked the fundamental basis of galactic law." Elena leaned back in her chair, studying her friend's agitated expression. Maybe that basis needed attacking. "No, you don't understand." Kethar moved closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "The stability of galactic civilization depends on respect for ancient precedents. Without that framework, we have chaos, wars that could destroy entire species." "Kethar," Elena said gently, "your people were one of the first to achieve interstellar travel. You've been part of the galactic community for over 2,000 years. From your perspective, the current system probably seems natural, even beneficial. But look at it from the outside." Elena activated her desk's holographic display, bringing up a three-dimensional map of galactic political territories. Vast swaths of space glowed in the colors of ancient empires: Vordahani red, Nethys purple, the deep blue of the Silicon hegemony. Smaller, scattered patches showed the territories of younger species, most clustered in less desirable regions of the galaxy. The established powers control the richest systems, the most strategic locations, the best trade routes, Elena continued. They claim this is natural, the result of being first. But look closer. She manipulated the display, highlighting specific star systems. These are worlds the hegemony claimed centuries ago, but never developed. Dead systems that sat empty while younger species were forced to colonize harsh worlds in the galactic rim. Now that Alliance colonies have finally made some of those dead worlds productive, suddenly the ancient claims matter again. Kethar studied the display, his crystalline features reflecting the multicolored lights. "Elena, I understand your point, but you cannot change thousands of years of precedent overnight. The consequences of change," Elena interrupted, "versus the consequences of continued injustice. Kethar, how many species have been suppressed, exploited, or destroyed because they couldn't challenge ancient laws? How many innovations have been lost because younger civilizations weren't allowed to flourish?" The Zelenian was quiet for a long moment. Elena could see him struggling with concepts that challenged his fundamental understanding of galactic order. "What exactly are you planning?" he asked finally. Elena turned back to her message composition. "I'm requesting historical records from Earth. Complete diplomatic archives from our first 3 years in the galactic community." "I don't understand. What could Earth's records reveal that isn't already known?" Elena smiled, but the expression held little warmth. "Humans have a peculiar habit, Kethar. We keep detailed records of everything. Every conversation, every favor given or received, every promise made or broken. We document it all." She gestured to her computer display. "For 3 years, human diplomats have been taking notes on every interaction with galactic species. We've recorded who helped us, who hindered us, who kept their promises, and who broke them. We've documented which species supported our applications for council membership, and which worked behind the scenes to delay or deny our requests. Kethar's compound eyes widened. Elena, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that humans are about to present the galaxy with a complete accounting of how established powers really treat newcomers. Not the sanitized version in official records, but the truth. Elena's fingers moved across the keyboard, adding final touches to her message. Did you know that the Vordahani secretly offered military support to the Rigelian dissidents who tried to prevent our admission to the council? Did you know that the Silicon hegemony has been systematically underbidding human construction contracts using subsidies that violate their own trade agreements? Did you know that at least 6 major powers have been conducting industrial espionage against human colonies, stealing our agricultural innovations without compensation? Each revelation hit Kethar like a physical blow. Elena could see him reprocessing years of interactions through this new lens. But why haven't you raised these issues before? He stammered. Because humans understand patience, Kethar. We understand that sometimes you have to let people reveal their true nature before you respond. We've been taking notes, building evidence, and waiting for the right moment. Elena stood and walked to her quarters viewing port, gazing out at the vast structure of the council station. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species worked together in apparent harmony, but she now saw the hidden tensions and suppressed conflicts that lurked beneath the surface. The Alliance colonial crisis isn't really about mining rights, she continued. It's about whether younger species will ever be allowed to compete with established powers on equal terms. And humanity has decided that we have a debt to pay. A debt. Elena turned back to face her friend. The debt of gratitude, Kethar. Your people helped us when we were weak and vulnerable. So did the Sky Children, the Stonekin, the Deep Watch, and dozens of others. You offered friendship and support when you could have easily exploited our ignorance. Elena's expression hardened. But we also have debts of a different kind. The Vordahani tried to sabotage our council membership. The Silicon hegemony has been stealing our technology. The Nethys Trade Confederation has been using economic pressure to force unfair contracts on human colonies. She walked back to her desk and activated her message transmitter. Humans pay all their debts, Kethar, the good ones and the bad ones. The transmission began, quantum encrypted data packets racing toward Earth at faster-than-light speeds. Elena knew it would take weeks for the message to arrive and for Earth's response to return, but the process had begun. Kethar moved closer to Elena's desk. What exactly did you send? A complete request for classified diplomatic archives. Every secret agreement, every hidden negotiation, every behind-the-scenes manipulation that has affected humanity during our 3 years in the galactic community. Elena's voice carried the quiet certainty of someone who had made an irrevocable decision. And a formal request for Admiral Chun to bring the Pacific Fleet to Council space. The Zelenians staggered backward, as if struck. Elena, you cannot be serious. Military ships in Council space would violate dozens of treaties. Only if they come with hostile intent, Elena replied calmly. Admiral Chun will be conducting routine training exercises in international space near the Council station. Perfectly legal under galactic law. Elena began gathering her formal diplomatic materials. You see, Kethar, humans learned something important during our first 3 years here. Galactic civilization operates on elaborate rules of courtesy and precedent, but ultimately, power respects only power. She paused in her packing. The established powers have been testing humanity, seeing how far they can push us before we push back. They've mistaken our cooperation for weakness, our patience for submission. Elena, please, Kethar said urgently. Think about what you're doing. The political consequences are exactly what I'm thinking about, Elena interrupted. For millennia, younger species have accepted unfair treatment because they had no choice. They were isolated, alone, forced to work within systems designed to keep them subordinate. Elena sealed her diplomatic case with careful precision. But humanity is not alone, Kethar. We have allies, species who helped us when we needed it most. And we intend to help them in return. The door chimed again. Elena called for entry, and Captain Martinez stepped into the quarters. The military officer's expression was grim but determined. Elena, I've been monitoring galactic communications, Sarah reported. Word about your challenge is spreading fast. Hegemony forces are mobilizing throughout their territories. Intelligence suggests they're preparing military responses to colonial worlds. Elena nodded grimly. Expected. They're trying to resolve the situation through force before it could develop into a legal challenge they might lose. There's more, Sarah continued. Several Alliance worlds have sent distress signals. Hegemony raiders are hitting civilian targets, claiming they're hunting for illegal weapons shipments. Elena's hands clenched into fists. The hegemony was escalating exactly as she had feared they would. Ancient powers faced with challenges to their authority typically responded with overwhelming force, hoping to crush opposition before it could organize effectively. How long until Earth's response arrives? Sarah asked. 3 weeks minimum, Elena replied. Longer if they need time to gather the requested archives. Elena, Kethar interjected. 3 weeks is too long. If hegemony forces attack Alliance colonies, thousands could die before any help arrives. Elena turned to face both her companions. Then, we'd better make sure help arrives sooner. She activated her personal communication system, sending encrypted messages to every species representative who had aided humanity during their integration into galactic society. The Sky Children who had shared their art. The Stonekin who had provided mining technology. The Deep Watch who had opened their libraries. Dozens of species who had offered friendship to a young civilization finding its place among the stars. What are you doing? Sarah asked. Calling in 3 years' worth of accumulated debts, Elena replied. Every favor granted, every kindness shown, every gesture of friendship made toward humanity. Elena's fingers moved rapidly across the communication interface. Each message was personal, referencing specific interactions and shared experiences. She reminded the Sky Children of the zero-gravity concert they had performed together above Earth's moon. She mentioned the Stonekin mining engineers who had helped establish the first human colonies on barren worlds. She referenced the Deep Watch scholars who had worked alongside human researchers to translate ancient galactic texts. Elena, Kethar said slowly, "What exactly are you asking them to do?" Elena finished her messages and turned to face her friends. "I'm asking them to remember. I'm reminding them that when humanity needed help, they offered it freely. Now other young species need help, and humanity is asking its friends to stand with us." Captain Martinez checked her chronometer. "Elena, the council session reconvenes in 4 hours. Do you really think alien species will risk their political positions for abstract principles of justice?" Elena smiled, and for the first time in days, the expression held genuine warmth. "Sarah, you're thinking like a human military officer. You understand duty, honor, and the obligation to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But you don't fully understand something else." She walked back to the viewing port, watching the endless dance of ships around the council station. Humans aren't the only species in this galaxy who understand the weight of debts and obligations. We're just the only ones who have been systematically documenting them. Elena's personal communicator began chiming as responses arrived to her messages. The first came from a Sky Children collective, their ethereal harmonics conveying both surprise and determination. They remembered their collaboration with humanity and confirmed their support for what they called the harmony of justice. The Stonekin response was characteristically blunt. Their massive silicon-based forms might move slowly, but their commitment to friendship was absolute. They pledged their engineering expertise and defensive capabilities to protect colonial worlds from hegemony aggression. More responses followed. The Deep Watch offered intelligence support, their vast information networks capable of tracking hegemony military movements across the galaxy. Smaller species, ones Elena had barely expected to respond, sent messages of solidarity and offers of assistance. "I don't believe it," Sarah whispered, watching the flood of supportive responses. Elena, do you realize what you've created? Elena nodded slowly. A coalition based on something the galaxy hasn't seen before. Mutual respect and genuine friendship rather than fear or calculated self-interest. Kethar's crystalline features reflected the soft glow of incoming messages. Elena, this changes everything. If these species openly support human positions, it will split the galactic community. Good, Elena replied firmly. Maybe it's time for the galactic community to split along honest lines. Maybe it's time to decide whether civilization means cooperation and justice or oppression disguised as order. Elena began preparing for the resumed council session. She selected her most formal diplomatic attire, understanding that symbolism mattered in galactic politics. But she also made sure her personal communicator remained active, maintaining contact with the growing coalition of species who had decided to honor their debts to humanity. Elena, Sarah said quietly, are you sure you want to do this? Once you take this step, there's no going back. Humanity will be committed to a course that could lead to galactic war. Elena paused in her preparations. Sarah, 3 years ago, humanity entered this galactic community with hope for peaceful cooperation and mutual benefit. We offered our best efforts, our innovations, our cultural contributions. She turned to face her companions. In return, we received genuine friendship from some species and calculated exploitation from others. We documented everything, good and bad. Now it's time for an accounting. Elena sealed her diplomatic case and checked her chronometer. 2 hours until the session resumed. 2 hours to prepare for what might become the most important diplomatic confrontation in galactic history. Kethar, she said to her Zelenian friend, I want you to know that whatever happens today, humanity will always be grateful for the kindness your people showed us. You helped us when we were alone and afraid, and that debt will never be forgotten. Kethar's mandibles clicked softly. Elena, you speak as though we may not remain friends after today. Elena smiled sadly. That depends on whether your people choose to stand with justice or with the established order. I hope it won't come to that choice, but if it does, she left the sentence unfinished, but her meaning was clear. Humanity's debts of gratitude were matched by debts of a different kind, and both would be paid in full. As Elena prepared to leave her quarters, her communicator chimed one final time. The message was from Earth, transmitted on emergency channels that bypassed normal diplomatic protocols. Her heart raced as she opened the encryption. The message was brief, but devastating in its implications. Earth had not waited for her formal request. Human intelligence services had been monitoring galactic communications for 3 years, documenting every secret agreement and hidden manipulation. The evidence was already compiled, already analyzed, and already aboard Admiral Chen's fleet, which was accelerating toward Council space at maximum speed. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since their first day in the galactic community. They had been patient, cooperative, and seemingly naive. But they had also been watching, learning, and building the case for their eventual response. Elena read the final line of the message twice to make sure she understood. The bill is coming due. Make sure everyone knows who owes what. She closed the message and walked toward the door. In less than 2 hours, the galaxy would learn something new about humanity. They would discover that human patience was not the same as human weakness, and that debts accumulated over 3 years of careful observation could reshape the balance of interstellar power. Elena Vasquez stepped into the corridor, ready to collect what the galaxy owed. Council Chamber 7 had been reconfigured during the recess, its programmable matter walls now displaying a neutral star field that seemed to stretch into infinity. As Elena entered the chamber, she noticed the seating arrangements had changed. What had been scattered individual platforms now showed clear factional groupings. Ancient powers clustering together on one side, younger species gravitating toward another. The tension was palpable, crackling through the chamber's atmosphere like electricity before a storm. Elena took her position on the human platform, flanked by Dr. Chun and Captain Martinez. But now their small delegation was no longer isolated. The Sky Children had moved their floating platform closer to the human position. The massive Stonekin representatives had shifted their rock-like forms to create a defensive line. Even the ethereal Deep Watch had emerged from their usual shadows to take positions where their support could be clearly seen. Session will now reconvene, Prelate Vorthak announced, his massive insectoid form occupying the central moderator position. Ambassador Vasquez, you requested this recess to present additional evidence. The chamber is prepared to hear your presentation. Elena rose from her seat, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes focusing on her small human form. Around the chamber, holographic recording devices captured every word for transmission to home worlds across the galaxy. What happened in the next few minutes would reshape interstellar politics for generations to come. Honored representatives, Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. Humanity has spent 3 years learning about galactic civilization. We have studied your laws, adopted your customs, and attempted to participate in your community as peaceful members. She paused, letting her words sink in. During that time, we have maintained detailed records of every interaction, every agreement, and every treaty negotiation. Human diplomatic archives contain documentation that many of you may have forgotten or hoped would remain buried in classified files. Ambassador Nethes shifted on her platform, reptilian features displaying growing alarm. What exactly are you suggesting, human delegate? Elena smiled, the expression holding no warmth. I'm suggesting that it's time for truth, Ambassador Nethes. Complete truth about how established powers really treat newcomers to the galactic community. Elena activated her personal holographic projector, filling the chamber's center with a three-dimensional display of communication records. These are classified transmissions intercepted by human intelligence during our first year in the galactic community. Transmissions between Vortahani diplomatic staff discussing strategies to delay human council membership. The displayed text scrolled past in dozens of alien languages, but the translations were clear. Elena read selected passages aloud. The humans must be contained before they develop sufficient influence to challenge established territorial claims. Their technological innovations pose a significant threat to hegemony competitive advantages. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Several representatives seemed genuinely surprised, while others displayed obvious discomfort at seeing their private communications exposed. This is outrageous, Ambassador Nethes declared, rising from her platform. Private diplomatic communications are protected under galactic law. Only, Elena replied calmly, if they don't violate other galactic laws. These communications document deliberate attempts to manipulate council membership processes for political gain. They describe strategies to exploit human inexperience in trade negotiations. Most significantly, they reveal plans to appropriate human technological innovations without compensation. Elena manipulated her display, bringing up financial records that showed money transfers between hegemony accounts and various shell organizations. These records show payments made to colonial merchants who agreed to undercut human trade agreements. Subsidies provided to competing contractors bidding against human construction projects. Even bribes paid to dock workers at neutral stations to delay human cargo shipments. Dr. Chen leaned forward in his seat. Elena, where did you get these records? From our friends, Elena replied, gesturing toward the Deep Watch platform. The Deep Watch archives contain copies of most galactic financial transactions conducted through their information networks. When we asked for their help in documenting unfair trade practices, they provided complete records going back 3 years. The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. The Deep Watch were known for their absolute neutrality and their commitment to information preservation. If they had provided these records, it meant they had concluded that galactic justice required exposing the truth. Prelate Vorthak's compound eyes glittered with concern. Ambassador Vasquez, while these allegations are serious, They do not directly address the current dispute regarding Alliance mining rights. Don't they? Elena asked. Prelate Vorthak, the pattern is clear. Established powers use legal technicalities and ancient precedents to suppress competition from younger species. When legal methods prove insufficient, they resort to economic manipulation and covert interference. Elena manipulated her display again, showing recent military deployments across hegemony space. These are current Vordahani fleet positions. Notice how they're positioned to blockade major Alliance shipping routes. Notice the timing, exactly corresponding to our request to investigate historical precedents for territorial claims. She zoomed the display to show specific star systems. These are Alliance colonies that have reported increased raids by hegemony forces over the past 12 hours. Civilian targets hit by military units claiming to search for illegal weapon shipments. Captain Martinez stood beside Elena. I can confirm these reports, Prelate. Alliance colonies on Rigel 7, New Harmony, and the Centauri Collective have all been attacked since this session recessed. Casualty reports are still coming in. The chamber fell silent. Elena could see the implications registering in alien expressions across the vast space. The hegemony wasn't just arguing legal points. They were using military force to prevent those legal points from being challenged. This is exactly the pattern we've documented over the past 3 years, Elena continued. Legal manipulation backed by the implicit threat of force. Ancient powers maintaining their dominance through sophisticated oppression. Ambassador Nethes rose again, her reptilian form radiating fury. These accusations are completely unfounded. Hegemony forces are conducting legitimate security operations against colonial worlds that have violated arms control treaties. Really? Elena asked. Then, perhaps you can explain these records. The holographic display shifted to show detailed shipping manifests and cargo inspection reports. Elena had gambled that human intelligence services would have intercepted hegemony military communications, and the gamble had paid off. These are Vordahani military reports from the raids on Alliance colonies, Elena announced. Notice what they don't mention. Any weapons discoveries. No illegal arms shipments. No contraband of any kind. She highlighted specific sections of the reports. What they do mention is intelligence gathering on Alliance mining operations, industrial espionage targeting colonial technological innovations, and strategic assessment of defensive capabilities. Elena turned to face Ambassador Nethes directly. These weren't security operations, Ambassador. They were scouting missions preparing for full-scale military conquest of Alliance territories. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and accusations in dozens of languages while their translators struggled to keep pace. Elena stood calmly in the center of the storm, waiting for the initial shock to subside. Prelate Vorthak pounded his gavel, a massive crystalline hammer that produced sound waves designed to cut through even the most cacophonous alien arguments. Order. This chamber will have order. As the noise subsided, Elena activated her communicator. Admiral Chun, please proceed with the demonstration. Outside the chamber's transparent walls, space suddenly filled with light. Dozens of human warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the station's external illumination. The Pacific Fleet had arrived in council space with a precision that spoke of months of careful planning. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence carried a different quality. Elena could see recognition and calculation in alien expressions throughout the chamber. Humanity had just demonstrated that they were no longer the naive newcomers who had begged for council membership 3 years ago. Admiral Chin, Elena said into her communicator, please transmit our formal diplomatic message to all council representatives. Elena's personal display activated, showing the text of humanity's official position. Dr. Chun read the document aloud, his voice carrying the weight of Earth's entire government. To the Galactic Council and all member species, humanity formally demands immediate cessation of military operations against Alliance colonial worlds. We demand full investigation of hegemony violations of galactic trade laws, arms control treaties, and territorial sovereignty agreements. Chun paused, letting the words sink in. Furthermore, humanity formally invokes Article 12 of the Galactic Defense Compact, requesting protection for Alliance worlds under threat of unprovoked aggression. The implications hit like a sledgehammer. Article 12 required all Council species to provide military support for members facing unprovoked attack. Elena had just forced every species in the chamber to choose sides, stand with the Alliance and humanity, or openly support hegemony aggression. Ambassador Nethes seemed to stagger under the weight of the moment. You cannot invoke Article 12. Alliance worlds are not Council members. No, Elena agreed, but humanity is, and humanity formally recognizes Alliance territorial sovereignty. Article 12 covers threats to territories under the protection of Council members. Elena manipulated her display to show the relevant treaty language. The legal precedent was established during the Korthak expansion wars, when a Silicon hegemony invoked Article 12 to protect their client states. The Vordahani Empire supported that invocation. She turned to face the hegemony representatives directly. You cannot oppose this invocation without contradicting your own legal precedents. Unless you're prepared to admit that galactic law only applies when it serves established power. Prelate Vorthak's massive form seemed to slump under the weight of the legal and political trap Elena had constructed. This is unprecedented. Article 12 has never been invoked for such extensive territorial claims. Because no one has ever had the courage to challenge the system, Elena replied. Younger species have been forced to accept unfair treatment because they had no choice. But humanity refuses to accept that status quo. Elena gestured toward her allied platforms. We're not alone in this refusal. The species who supported humanity during our integration into galactic society have chosen to support justice over political convenience. The Sky Children representative rose from their floating platform, their ethereal voice carrying the harmonics of absolute conviction. The aerial collectives confirm support for human positions. Justice flows like wind through open spaces. It cannot be contained by artificial barriers. The massive Stonekian delegate's voice rumbled through the chamber like an earthquake. Silicon speaks truth in solid words. Young mountains grow tall when old peaks crumble. We stand with human stone friends. More voices join the chorus. The Deep Watch confirmed their support through data rather than words, transmitting historical precedents that supported human legal arguments. Smaller species, ones Elena had never expected to risk their political positions, sent messages of solidarity that appeared on her display. Elena watched the chamber divide in real time. Ancient powers clustered around the Vordahani and Nethes platforms, their expressions ranging from fury to calculation. Younger species gravitated toward the human coalition, their representatives displaying determination mixed with fear of the consequences. You see what you have done? Ambassador Nethes hissed, her reptilian form coiled with tension. You have torn the galaxy in half. The stability that has maintained peace for millennia was built on the suffering of species you considered unimportant, Elena interrupted. Your stability was maintained by suppressing anyone who might challenge your dominance. Elena's communicator chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Chun. She read the transmission quickly, then smiled with grim satisfaction. Admiral Chun reports that hegemony forces are withdrawing from Alliance territories, she announced. It seems the presence of human warships has convinced them that continued aggression might prove costly. Elena turned to address the entire chamber. This is what real strength looks like, honored representatives. Not the ability to oppress those weaker than yourselves, but the courage to protect those who cannot protect themselves. She gestured toward the human fleet visible through the chamber's walls. Humanity spent 3 years learning about galactic civilization. We studied your technologies, adopted your methods, and built relationships with species who shared our values. Elena's voice strengthened, carrying the conviction of someone who had prepared for this moment for years. But We also prepared for the possibility that cooperation might not be enough. We built alliances based on genuine friendship. We documented every injustice and every violation of the principles you claim to uphold. Elena manipulated her display one final time, showing a complex web of relationships between species throughout the galaxy. Lines of light-connected worlds and civilizations, color-coded to show trade relationships, military alliances, and cultural exchanges. This is what we've built over the past 3 years, Elena announced. Not just treaties and trade agreements, but genuine friendships based on mutual respect and shared values. The display highlighted the growing coalition of species supporting human positions. Elena could see representatives throughout the chamber studying the visualization with growing understanding. Humanity had not just accumulated allies. They had created an entirely new power structure within galactic civilization. The choice before this chamber is simple, Elena continued. You can continue supporting a system that maintains order through oppression, or you can join us in building something better. Elena paused, letting her words echo through the vast chamber. Humanity has spent 3 years documenting our debts, both good and bad. Today, we begin collecting on those debts. She turned to face Ambassador Nethes directly. The Vordahani Empire tried to manipulate our council membership, steal our technology, and suppress our trade relationships. Those debts will be paid. Elena's gaze swept across the hegemony platforms. But we also remember every species that offered genuine friendship and support. Those debts will be paid as well, with interest that compounds over time. Elena gathered her diplomatic materials and prepared to leave the chamber. This session is adjourned pending formal responses from member species to humanity's Article 12 invocation. You have 72 standard hours to decide whether galactic civilization will be based on justice or oppression. As Elena walked toward the chamber's exit, she could feel the weight of hundreds of alien gazes following her small form. Behind her, the chamber erupted in desperate negotiations as species representatives tried to calculate the political and military implications of the new reality humanity had created. Elena paused at the chamber's threshold and turned back to address the assembly one final time. Honored representatives, humanity came to this galaxy seeking peaceful cooperation and mutual benefit. We found both, from species who chose to offer genuine friendship. Her voice carried to every corner of the vast chamber. We also found something else. We found that true civilization isn't about maintaining ancient privileges, but about treating all beings with equal respect and dignity. Elena smiled, and for the first time in days, the expression held genuine warmth. Humanity always pays its debts. All of them. Today, we begin settling accounts that have been 3 years in the making. Elena Vasquez walked out of Council Chamber 7, leaving behind a galaxy that would never be the same again. In 72 hours, every species would be forced to choose between the comfortable oppression of the past and the uncertain justice of the future. The bill had finally come due, and humanity was prepared to collect every credit owed. 71 hours had passed since Elena's ultimatum echoed through Council Chamber 7. The station buzzed with desperate diplomatic activity as species representatives scrambled to understand the new reality humanity had thrust upon them. Elena stood in the observation deck's central platform, watching the chaos unfold through the transparent aluminum barriers that separated her from a void. The scene outside had transformed dramatically. Admiral Chen's Pacific Fleet maintained defensive positions around the Council Station, their weapons systems powered down, but clearly visible. Hegemony warships lingered at the edge of the system, unwilling to withdraw completely, but equally unwilling to risk direct confrontation with human forces. Between them, ships from dozens of species arrived hourly, bringing reinforcements, diplomats, and urgent communications from distant homeworlds. Elena, Dr. Chen's voice carried exhaustion earned through 3 days of continuous negotiations. The preliminary vote counts are in. Elena turned from the viewing port to face her colleague. James looked like he had aged a decade in the past week. Dark circles ringed his eyes, and his usually immaculate diplomatic attire showed signs of hasty maintenance. How many? 47 species have formally endorsed humanity's Article 12 invocation, Chin reported. 32 have declared neutrality pending further investigation. 21 have sided with the hegemony. Elena nodded grimly. The numbers were better than she had dared hope, but worse than she needed for a clean victory. What about the major powers? The Sky Children, Stonekin, and Deepwatch remained solid. The Zelenian Trade Confederation announced support this morning. Kethar's influence carried significant weight with their council. Chun consulted his tablet, but the Silicon Hegemony declared for the Vordahani an hour ago. The Crystalline Empire is still debating. Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a physical burden. She had gambled humanity's future on the belief that justice would triumph over political convenience. But the galaxy was proving more complicated than her idealism had anticipated. Captain Martinez to Ambassador Vasquez. Her communicator crackled. Priority message from Admiral Chun. Elena activated the channel. Admiral, what's your assessment? Admiral Chin's voice carried the calm professionalism Elena had learned to associate with human military leadership. Ambassador, we have a problem. Long-range sensors detect massive fleet movements throughout hegemony space. They're mobilizing everything. Warships, troop transports, industrial vessels. Elena's blood chilled. How massive? Conservative estimate? 3,000 ships minimum, possibly twice that number. Full-scale invasion force capable of conquering every Alliance world simultaneously. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the galaxy's political structure collapsing around her. She had hoped that exposing hegemony crimes would be enough to force peaceful resolution. Instead, she had triggered the very war she had tried to prevent. Time until they arrive at Alliance territories. 18 hours at current acceleration. Ambassador, they're not just targeting Alliance worlds. Intelligence suggests they plan to hit every species supporting your Article 12 invocation. The magnitude of the crisis hit Elena like a physical blow. Her diplomatic gambit had backfired catastrophically. Instead of creating peaceful resolution, she had given the hegemony powers an excuse for the massive military action they had probably been planning for years. Elena, Dr. Chun said quietly, there's more. Earth received the intelligence data you requested. The archives contain information you need to see. Elena walked to Chin's workstation, dreading what she might discover. The classified documents that appeared on his display contained 3 years of carefully recorded interactions between humanity and galactic civilization. But they also contained something else, information that changed everything she thought she knew about the situation. James, what am I looking at? Chun highlighted specific sections of the documents. Elena, the Alliance colonial crisis wasn't spontaneous. Earth's intelligence services have been tracking hegemony preparations for massive territorial expansion for over 2 years. Elena studied the data, feeling her understanding of recent events shifting like sand beneath her feet. You're saying the hegemony planned this war regardless of our intervention? Not just planned it, they needed it. Elena, look at these economic projections. The display showed complex financial models that tracked resource flows throughout hegemony space. Elena wasn't an economist, but the trends were clear enough. Declining productivity, aging infrastructure, technological stagnation. The ancient powers are dying, Chun continued. Not militarily, but economically and culturally. Younger species are outcompeting them in every meaningful category. Innovation, efficiency, cultural vitality. Elena traced the projection lines with growing understanding. They need conquest to survive. Exactly. The Alliance colonies were never about mining rights. They were about the hegemony's last chance to acquire the resources and technology necessary to maintain their dominance. Elena felt a mixture of relief and terror. Relief that her diplomatic intervention hadn't caused the crisis. Terror at realizing the true scope of what humanity now faced. So this war was inevitable. Yes, but Elena, there's something else. Something that changes our tactical situation completely. Chen activated a new display showing detailed intelligence reports on hegemony military capabilities. Earth's analysis suggests the hegemony is far weaker than they appear. Their massive fleet is mostly obsolete vessels with outdated weapon systems. They're counting on intimidation and overwhelming numbers rather than technological superiority. Elena studied the military assessments, seeing new possibilities emerging from chaos. What are you suggesting, James? I'm suggesting that humanity's real debt isn't just moral, it's strategic. We have technological advantages the galaxy hasn't fully recognized yet. Elena's communicator chimed with an urgent message from Admiral Chun. Ambassador, you need to see this. Our deep space sensors have detected something extraordinary. Elena activated the channel. Admiral, Ambassador, we're receiving transmissions from the galactic rim. Ships are emerging from hyperspace at extreme range, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Elena felt her heart racing. Whose ships? Unknown configurations. But, Ambassador, Admiral Chen paused, and Elena could hear the amazement in his voice. They're broadcasting human identification codes. Elena stared at Dr. Chun, seeing her own shock reflected in his expression. James, how many human ships are there? Chun consulted his records quickly. The Pacific Fleet represents about 60% of Earth's deep space naval capacity. Maybe 200 ships total. Admiral Chen, Elena said into her communicator, how many ships are you detecting? Current count is over 800 vessels, Ambassador. And they're still emerging from hyperspace. Elena felt the universe shifting around her. Admiral, are you absolutely certain those are human ships? Confirmed, Ambassador. But they're not Earth ships. These vessels are broadcasting colonial identification codes. Mars, Europa, the Centauri colonies, the vegan settlements. Ambassador, every human colony in the galaxy is coming to Council space. Elena sank into a nearby chair, overwhelmed by the implications. Humanity had spent 3 years establishing colonies throughout galactic space, often in remote systems overlooked by established powers. She had focused on the diplomatic and economic aspects of colonization, but apparently Earth's leadership had understood the military implications as well. Dr. Chun, she said weakly, how many human colonies are there? Chun consulted his database, his expression growing more amazed as he scrolled through the records. Elena, there are over 40 human colonial governments scattered throughout the galaxy. Most of them independent settlements that declared autonomy from Earth within the past 2 years. Elena began to laugh, the sound carrying hysteria mixed with relief. James, do you understand what this means? I think so. The hegemony prepared to fight the Earth fleet and maybe a few hundred allied ships. Instead, they're about to face the combined military might of every human settlement in the galaxy. Elena's laughter grew stronger. Not just human settlements, James. Look at the sensor readings more carefully. Chen examined Admiral Chen's data transmission, his eyes widening as he recognized ship configurations from dozens of different species. Elena, those aren't just human fleets. The colonies are multi-species settlements. Elena stood and walked back to the observation port, watching the distant flashes of light that marked arriving fleets. For 3 years, humanity has been building something the galaxy has never seen before. Not empires or hegemonies, but genuine collaborative communities. She activated her communication system, broadcasting on all diplomatic channels. This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth. I am addressing all Galactic Council representatives currently in Council space. Around the station, ships from dozens of species oriented themselves to receive her transmission. Elena knew her words would be recorded and transmitted to home worlds throughout the galaxy. 72 hours ago, humanity invoked Article 12 of the Galactic Defense Compact to protect Alliance colonies from unprovoked aggression. In response, the hegemony powers have mobilized for the largest military campaign in galactic history. Elena paused, gathering her thoughts. What you are witnessing now is not Earth responding to that threat. What you are witnessing is 43 independent human colonies, supported by allied species from across the galaxy, coming to honor their debts of friendship and mutual protection. The communication board filled with responses as species representatives demanded clarification. Elena ignored them, continuing her broadcast. For 3 years, humanity has been documenting every kindness received and every injustice suffered. Today, we begin collecting on those debts. But we are not collecting alone. Elena manipulated her display to show the approaching fleets in detail. These ships represent over 60 different species. Humans, yes, but also Sky Children, Stonekin, Deep Watch, and dozens of younger civilizations that have chosen cooperation over conquest. Elena's voice strengthened, carrying the conviction of someone who had finally found solid ground beneath her feet. The hegemony powers believe they can maintain dominance through military force. They believe ancient privileges matter more than current justice. They believe established power automatically deserves continued power. Elena turned away from the viewing port to face the chamber's recording systems directly. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Elena activated her fleet communication system. Admiral Chun, please coordinate with Colonial Fleet commanders. I want defensive positions around every Alliance world within 6 hours. Understood, Ambassador. What about hegemony forces already approaching Alliance territories? Elena smiled, feeling the weight of 3 years' careful preparation finally paying off. Admiral, please transmit standard humanitarian warnings. Hegemony ships have 30 minutes to withdraw to neutral space before colonial defense forces take appropriate action. Ambassador, Admiral Chen's voice carried new confidence. Preliminary tactical assessments suggest we have significant numerical and technological advantages. Colonial fleets are equipped with the latest human innovations, plus technology sharing from allied species. Elena nodded. Admiral, I want absolute minimum casualties on all sides. Our goal is to demonstrate that aggression will not be tolerated, not to destroy hegemony forces unnecessarily. Elena switched to diplomatic channels, addressing the council representatives still gathered around the station. Honored delegates, humanity offers one final opportunity for peaceful resolution. She manipulated her display to show legal documents that had been prepared during the 3-day recess. These are formal territorial recognition agreements between humanity and the Alliance colonies. Every Alliance world now exists under human protection, guaranteed by the full military resources of human colonial civilization. Elena could see shock registering on alien faces throughout the observation deck. Furthermore, humanity formally recognizes the sovereign rights of all species currently supporting our Article 12 invocation. Any military action against our allies will be considered an act of war against humanity itself. Elena paused, letting the implications sink in. Hegemony powers have 1 hour to withdraw their forces to pre-crisis positions. After that deadline, humanity will consider continued military mobilization an act of aggression requiring immediate response. Elena closed her diplomatic channels and turned to Dr. Chen. James, do you think they'll accept? Chen studied the tactical displays showing fleet positions throughout local space. Elena, I don't think they have a choice. Even if they win a military confrontation, the cost would be devastating. Their economic projections show they can't afford a prolonged war. Elena's communicator chimed with an incoming message from Kethar. Her Zelenian friend's crystalline features appeared on the display, showing obvious relief mixed with continued concern. Elena, Kethar said, the Zelenian Trade Confederation formally requests mediation assistance. Several hegemony powers are indicating willingness to negotiate rather than fight. Elena felt tension draining from her shoulders. What are they offering? Full withdrawal from Alliance territories, recognition of colonial sovereignty, compensation for damages caused by recent military actions. Kitar posted. Elena, they're also requesting formal trade agreements with human colonies. They want access to human technological innovations. Elena began to laugh again, but this time the sound carried genuine amusement rather than hysteria. Kethar, 3 days ago, they were trying to steal our technology through industrial espionage. Now they want to pay for it. Elena, Kethar replied seriously, they've realized that human colonies represent the most dynamic economic force in the galaxy. They can either trade with you or be left behind entirely. Elena walked back to the observation port, watching as hegemony fleets began changing course away from Alliance territories. The massive invasion force that had threatened to destroy dozens of worlds was withdrawing without firing a shot. Dr. Chun, Elena said quietly, sent a message to Earth. Tell them the bill has been paid in full. Elena activated her communication system one final time, broadcasting on all channels. This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez. Humanity is pleased to announce that the current crisis has been resolved through peaceful negotiation. She paused, watching ships throughout the system beginning to stand down from combat alert. To our friends and allies throughout the galaxy, humanity thanks you for honoring your debts of friendship when it mattered most. Your support will not be forgotten. Elena's voice carried across the void to ships and stations throughout the system. To those who opposed us, humanity bears no grudges. We understand that change is difficult, especially for civilizations that have held power for millennia. But the galaxy is changing whether we guide that change or not. Elena smiled as she delivered her final message. Humanity learned something important during our first 3 years in the galactic community. We learned that true strength comes not from the ability to dominate others, but from the wisdom to build genuine partnerships with those who share your values. Elena closed the communication channel and turned to face Dr. Chun. James, I think it's time to draft some new trade agreements. Elena Vasquez looked out at the vast expanse of space surrounding the Council Station, watching as hundreds of ships from dozens of species began the long journey back to their homeworlds. But now those journeys carried new possibilities, new partnerships, and new understanding of what galactic civilization could become. Humanity had spent 3 years documenting their debts, both good and bad. Today they had collected on those debts in full, transforming the galaxy's power structure through the simple recognition that strength should serve justice rather than replace it. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humans always remember their debts, and they always pay what they owe.